Welcome to this episode of Grassroots Advocacy. It's a real pleasure to have you guys here. If you haven't had an opportunity to check out the previous 35 episodes, please do, so that way you have the opportunity to really understand the scope and the nature of what it means to be a grassroots advocate. For our segment today, we really are very fortunate to be able to tap into some knowledge and some experience in the form of Mr. Matthew Cantrell. Matt's been associated with the association, a double A, has been associated with NAHCA for a very long time, from his early childhood into his college years when Matt served. While he was going to school, he also served in the advocacy arena and also in educational development with NAHCA. And then he took a hiatus and went and became, I shouldn't say hiatus, he took an opportunity to get some real world in the field experience and became a licensed nursing home administrator, serving in Indiana and in Missouri. Matt recently rejoined the NAHCA team to serve as our chief operating officer. And as I said, Matt's been around with us for a while and has a great deal of knowledge about the mission and vision of the organization. And so it was a perfect opportunity because up to this point, when we've been talking about serving as a voice for your residents, for your fellow nursing assistants, and for the post-acute and long-term care system, we've really spoken about that from one point of view. Well, now we're going to incorporate the administrative point of view from Matthew. So Matthew, welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here today.
Awesome. Well, so Matt, when we think about grassroots advocacy, one of the things that we've been sharing with our members who have been faithfully watching grassroots advocacy is that it's really important for us to try to think about what we need to speak up about and how we need to speak up about it. So from an administrator's perspective, will you share with me what your perspective is on nursing assistants acting as advocates?
Well, it's hard to understate the importance of this because, as you all out there know, the nursing assistants are the closest staff member to the residents. Absolutely. Right? So they are seeing the residents or patients a lot more than the administrator is. Mm-hmm. As an administrator, I didn't have time to go and spend with the residents as much as I would have liked to, but y'all do. So I think it's really important that you understand the power of your influence as nursing assistants, because you guys are out there on the front line every single day. You're there in the morning, you're there at lunch, you're there at night, you're there the entire day. So you guys will be way more in tune to things going on with our residents that as an administrator, I wouldn't know. And I think that's super important. So kind of putting yourself, in the scenario of, maybe there's something going on that you think should probably be addressed. You need to understand that it is your duty to go ahead and pass that information along, because if you don't do it and everybody else thinks the same way that, somebody else will do it, then, it could lead for poor outcomes. And, you need to be the one that steps up and advocates for yourself and your residents.
Perfect. And I'm really glad that you made that point, Matt, about the risk of assuming that somebody else is going to touch on it. Mm-hmm. The other thing that I think, as I was listening to you, the other thing that really occurred to me is that whenever you're reporting your concerns or expressing your concerns, no one's going to be able to express that better than you, and is going to have firsthand knowledge of that situation that you're expressing concern about. So thank you for really making that point for us. When you, in your role as an administrator, what advice would you give to advocates in terms of preparing to express a thought or a concern with their leaders, whether it be their licensed leaders or their administrative leaders?
That's a great question. So kind of the advice that I would give is, I mean, think about it before you go in there and actually talk about it. You'll probably need to do a little bit of planning, because one of the things that I've experienced is, in order to effectively communicate whatever you're trying to communicate, you need to have it thought out in your head before you go in there. Also, the tone of voice that, you're using whenever you're communicating that, just make sure that the messaging is done in a correct way. So whenever I say that, what I mean is, say that Matt is a caregiver out there, and he is going to go to his superior with some sort of issue, right? Mm-hmm. It would be very easy for Matt to go in and say, well, all of these things are wrong, and people aren't doing it right, and something needs to be done. Something needs to be done. Well, maybe you are conveying whatever the problem is, but that isn't the most effective way to do it, right? Absolutely. So in that scenario, Matt should go in and say, I've been noticing that there's this problem occurring. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's a negative impact for the residents or quality of care or whatever it may be, and that something should be done about it. And then if you really want to get your message across very well, come with a solution. Oh my gosh, your supervisors will love it, because constantly, supervisors, not just in long-term care, but in every single industry, are getting bombarded with all these problems. Each and every day, it seems like every single person is coming with a problem. But if you're the person that comes with a problem and a solution, it makes it very easy for that supervisor to get behind whatever you're saying and make something happen out of it.
Absolutely. And Matt, it occurs to me that it's really a good idea to go with a solution. And the reason that it's really a good idea to go with a solution, besides the fact that it makes it easier for the leader to say yes as opposed to create a solution themselves, it also shows that leader that you've really taken the time to do the research and to think through the problem, to put forth some good solid analysis that then gives them the opportunity to create a win-win for everybody.
Yeah, exactly. So just in my experience, I have encouraged my CNA staff to do that all the time, right? Because, again, getting back to it, y'all are the ones who are closest to the resident, closest to whatever that problem may be, right? So reason stands that you guys will probably have the best solution to it, rather than somebody who's kind of indirectly associated with whatever that issue is. If you are seeing it and you're dealing with it every single day, you probably have a better concept of the problem and maybe what solutions are out there.
Absolutely. And I think too, something else that just occurs to me as we're talking about is, it's really, when you think about the passion that it takes to do the work, and when you also think about the fact that occasionally nursing assistants feel like they're not being heard, it's possible that maybe it's not that you're not being heard, it's that the message isn't being delivered in an actionable way.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. Yep. You are completely right.
So, Matt, where I wanted to go next was, in visiting with our members, one of the things that I occasionally will hear expressed as a concern was, well, I told so-and-so and nothing ever happened. Mm-hmm. What advice would you provide for our viewers in terms of how to manage their expectations and so that they can kind of better understand that from a leader's point of view?
Yeah, so that's another great point, because, I mean, with the myriad of issues out there, if it's an employee issue or if it's a care issue or whatever it is, sometimes the solution to whatever issue, conflict, problem that has been brought up can't be discussed with every single person, right? So if it's an employee issue, right? If there's a problem with Jeff here, right? So Jeff is an employee, and maybe he has some personal and professional growth to do to become a better staff member. I'm not going to go out and tell every single other staff member, oh, well, Jeff's not doing this and this and this, and I talked to him about it, so he should get better now. That's not how things work. That's not the best way to do things. So there's that side of things, as well as sometimes the issues that come up are not easy ones. In fact, often they're not. They're not easy, black and white. We're going to solve this today, right now, right? It's an incremental change sometimes that's needed to solve some of those problems. So how I think of it is, if you're out there every single day in and amongst whatever conflict issue it is, and things are incrementally happen, it's kind of hard to see the bigger picture, right? And see that things are actually changing. But if you would take a step back and look and say, okay, 6 months ago it was like this, but today it's like this, then you can kind of get a better perspective of how far you've actually come to address whatever that issue is.
Absolutely. And so I hear you saying two things there that really resonate. And the first is, it's really important for us to be patient. There's this old saying, Rome wasn't built in a day. Well, transformation in the post-acute long-term care environment takes decades, not days or weeks or months or years, but decades, if you think about the big picture stuff. So it's important for us, once we voice a concern and once we present a viable solution, it's up to us to exercise a bit of patience and a bit of understanding with the system. And then the other thing that you said, Matt, that really resonated with me was really about trying to look at things, not necessarily expecting someone to come back and say, this is that I did X, Y, or Z, but simply to look for the things that are happening around that issue that are changing. For example, let's say that your concern was that you had elders who were being gotten up at like 5 o'clock in the morning to get a shower, and you knew that wasn't necessarily their most preferable time. Well, you wouldn't necessarily immediately see that we're no longer doing baths at 5 o'clock in the morning. That's just not realistic. What you might see over time is that the elders in your community are getting offered more choices when it comes to their bathing experience times and so forth. And so being patient and taking the time for those things to unfold really is a good thing. Now, there's one other thing we have a little bit more time left, Matt, and there's something else that just occurred to me.
Okay.
In the new set of regulations, nursing assistants have an opportunity to participate in the quality assurance and performance improvement, the QAPI process. From your perspective as a leader, would this be a constructive way for them to serve as advocates for the residents?
Oh, yes. How can I say yes more strongly? Because in the past, some of you long-term CNAs out there might remember, somebody may have come to you and asked your opinion on X, Y, or Z whenever it comes to a care plan, right? But involving CNAs in the process of getting care plans and ISPs and things like that together, I mean, it's huge because, I mean, I sound like a broken record, but, going back to it, you guys are the ones out there. You guys are the ones that are seeing all this. You guys are the experts in a lot of different areas that me as an administrator or, Susie as a DON might not be, as attuned to because they're not out there seeing it every single day. So I think it is just, I think it's great.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, Matt, we really appreciate that you shared your time and your insight with us today. So you guys, I want to encourage each of you to, if you have a concern or something that you want to work on as a grassroots advocate, please make a comment in this comment space below or email me at jwellman@nahcacna.org or give me a call at area code 417-623-6049. And we'll be able to include your questions, your concerns in future episodes of Grassroots Advocacy. Now, as we get ready to leave today, I would like to ask you to do me a favor. If you're logged into YouTube, please make sure to hit subscribe. If you see the little bell, click on it so that anytime we post a new video to our channel, you'll be able to get a push notification so you can go check it out right away. You don't have to guess if it's there. And we look forward to having you for the next episode of Grassroots Advocacy. Until then, be well.